Welcome to Gatecrashers, a podcast dedicated to kicking open the doors to your next favorite thing. Our mission, our creed, and our code is this: to make all nerdy things more approachable and accessible for everyone. We want you to find a universe that you're going to fall in love with. I'm Dan. I use he, him pronouns.
I'm Ethan. I also use he, him pronouns.
And today, we're joined by Jed MacKay, writer of Black Cat, Taskmaster, and soon-to-be Moon Knight for Marvel, and Magic the Gathering for Boom Studios. How are you?
Hey, how's it going? I also use he, him pronouns.
Glad to have you here.
Oh, thank you. I'm always happy to chat.
Yeah, it's
Great.
you kind of became the big dog at Marvel. You got everything.
Yeah, I don't know if I go that far, but I've certainly been very lucky with the stuff coming at me for sure.
Absolutely. I've been I wanted to get you on for a while, but Ethan actually was the one who gave me the courage to reach out, and it was like a very easy conversation.
I've been shouting at Dan for ages to read Black Cat. So
yes.
Oh, good.
I spent my weekend reading because I loved Taskmaster, and I was I should probably read Black Cat, and I had it all sitting on my desk. But let me tell you what, it was a great weekend because it's an absolutely phenomenal book.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's if you like Taskmaster, you like Black Cat.
Yeah, I didn't realize how much I liked Taskmaster until I read your book, and I was like, oh, this character is kind of a mess, and I really like him.
Yeah, he's got a lot of sides. That's kind of what I like about Taskmaster is that he's one of the baddest dudes in the Marvel universe. He has such a range of skills to choose from, and contacts and experience and stuff like that. But he's also just sort of a shitty asshole.
Yeah,
and that combination of factors I really find fascinating and interesting to work with.
I do have a couple questions about him, a little bit deeper.
Sure.
But I do want to start the interview off with our big question. Mm-hmm. We always like to start off with kind of a hard hitter that usually catches people off guard because we're professionals.
Of course.
What's your favorite sandwich?
My favorite sandwich? That's a good question. I always have a hard time with favorites because I just have a hard time choosing favorites. I feel like it really depends on the situation. Like, a sandwich for a meal, for a dinner, I'll make a steak sandwich. Something for lunch, I love a grilled cheese. And then that's beyond getting into the more esoteric realms of what constitutes a sandwich. The usual sort of suspects coming up there. But I'll just go with a steak sandwich. It's simple, it's tasty. You got some steak, got some horseradish, nice crusty piece of bread. You're all set.
Now for steak, are you talking like thin cut, or are you talking like a full steak sliced up?
I'll fry a steak or grill a steak depending on the weather, and then chop her up and throw her on there. It's not the most elegant of sandwiches. I'll grant you that, but it does the job.
Yeah, I'm from Philly, so I always have to make sure people are saying this like the same steak sandwich that's in my mind based on where they're from.
Because more like a thin slice, more like a roast beef, right?
Yeah. That's why I was like, is it a roast beef or is it a steak?
Yeah, no, it's proper steak.
Yeah. So, between your work on Daughters of the Dragon, Black Cat, Taskmaster, and now Moon Knight, you seem to have an affinity for the more sort of anti-hero characters of the Marvel pantheon.
Sure.
What do you think draws you to them?
I think I just like people that are a little shittier. Like you don't see that as much with Daughters or something like that. But at the same time, Misty and Colleen are pretty chaotic and at times self-involved. And I think that's really interesting in characters, and then Felicia is, obviously a criminal, obviously a little shitty, definitely very self-involved and, self-interested. And then all the way to Taskmaster, who's kind of the far end of that slider, who is a professional murderer, but also has some thoughts about the industry that he's in and is, rife with his own idiosyncrasies.
How do you characterize these characters without? Oh, that's a really good. How do you characterize them so the reader can recognize that their deeds are bad, but maybe their circumstances put them there? So how do you walk that line?
Part of the thing is you do have to have a line that you don't really want to cross. I was working with a bit on Taskmaster, where Taskmaster's like, yeah, you know what? I don't work for Nazis anymore. Last time I worked for Baron Zemo, punched and ran me over with the truck. No one needs that kind of static in their life, because you know what? If you're trying to humanize a character, maybe don't have them pal around with Nazis. We have pretty wide remit as comic readers to forgive characters for their sins, especially characters that have been around for a long time. Like if you went farther enough back in Taskmaster's history, especially when he was on the hard V villain side of the equation, you're going to find some stuff that was probably pretty unforgivable. But it's long ago now, and we're always, as readers, we're always kind of willing to recontextualize characters for the most part, because we want to like the characters that we're reading, or if we dislike them, we want to dislike them in a way that's interesting and fun. So, show a character's quirks, show the things that make them not just another villain, say why they're doing this, and also show how they justify these things to themselves.
Do you think showing things like that is like your kind of toolbox to help people empathize with these characters? Like, what do you think makes a character like Taskmaster redeemable, and how do you go about showing that?
Yeah, part of the thing is I'm not really interested in redeeming it. He's not a good person, but I'm interested in showing him in a way that is interesting and, in some form relatable. I'm certainly, I love Taskmaster. I think he's a great character. He's not someone I really want to spend any time with. Where people are like, oh, who'd you take to dinner if you take to dinner a fictional character? It would not be Taskmaster, because he's terrible. But he's terrible in a way that I think that we can understand, and I think that is kind of relatable, in the sense that, if I was the baddest dude in the world, yeah, maybe I'd get up to globetrotting shenanigans like that. Everyone has this sort of weird power fantasy without the sort of, accompanying morals with it. He's a bit of a cartoon character, and that's what I think is fun about him.
Yeah, I think so too. I also love his commitment to a bit, that the way he answers the phone and things like that are kind of like driving forces behind his character.
Yeah, and he's someone who's deeply he's 100% bought into his own delusions. His pride in his ridiculous costume, which, when that series was announced, people were like, oh, we're going to have the Udon Taskmaster suit. I'm like, absolutely not. We're going like full pirate boots, full flared gloves and, skull mask and white trunks, because I think it's just really emblematic of the character, the things I like about the character.
I think that is probably my favorite thing about this too, is that in the first issue, he's like, no, this is who I am. Like, anybody else can pull those things off, but I'm Taskmaster. I can pull off the pirate boots. Yeah, exactly. He's, people often compare Taskmaster to Deathstroke for, it just seems to be like an easy one-to-one transition for people. The Taskmaster's more like Deathstroke, but Deathstroke had a real background in musical theater. Yeah, and you know what? I'll go on the record as saying Taskmaster probably is not as a big a piece of shit as Deathstroke. Well, that we know of, certainly. Yeah. Certainly not on the page. Yeah, fingers crossed. Yeah. He wasn't out there Judas contracting it with I don't know, the Young Avengers or whichever teen group you want to put out there. Yeah, that's like one thing you always want to be kind of retconned, but now it's to the point where like it's a serious topic, and it was really pulled off well in the other history that they wrote a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that I don't know. It's weird. It gets brushed under the rug, but it doesn't, and it's always really curious to me how people approach that bit of Slade's history, because it's super fucking gross.
Yeah.
But also it's so long ago that, like I said, as readers often recontextualize, or often are open to recontextualizations of characters, and I don't really know what to do with that.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a little bit of nugget they left for everyone else to handle.
Yeah, and yet 60 years on, we're still hearing about Hank Pym slapping his wife one time when he was in a mental health crisis.
Yeah. So there's like certain aspects of comics that fans won't let go. Like I feel like if it stops being in the zeitgeist, it might go away, but it's a tough subject to kind of tackle.
Yeah. I mean, Pym's dead now anyway, so
yeah,
what are you going to do?
Problem solved.
Yeah.
So with characters like Bruno Granger, you've given them what seems like these small character elements that kind of bring a lot more life and kind of introspective to them. Like his love of Elvis is something that has stuck with me since I read it, and I was like, that's like a very small character bit that makes this character less of a henchman and more of his own person. Are elements like this important to you in order to flesh out characters?
Yeah, I think so. Early on when I was writing this, I was really keen to bring Bruno and Boris back from the character limbo they've been in since like 1979 or whatever. And it was pretty apparent that of the two, Dr. Corpse was the one who got, he's very brash and, uses big words and just is really full of himself. And he, really gets his character out there, whereas Bruno's more reserved and, stolid. So I was like, well, how can we ensure that he's not just the other guy, And, Elvis just seemed like the ticket. And as time has gone on, we've seen a little more and more about Bruno, his pride in being from Pittsburgh, his unwavering loyalty and stuff like that. And I think it's important to act as like little crumbs of characterization for, Bruno and Boris aren't going to steal the show anytime soon. But I think it's useful to give people things to know that there's a little more to them than just the guy that drives and the guy that blows things up,
Yeah. And so when you're building a story like this, these characters aren't ones that like you're creating yourself. Do you kind of like start off with quirks like that? Or is that something that develops over the you writing them?
It's kind of hand in hand there, where sometimes I'll come up with an idea that I particularly like or sticks around and put it in my notes for what I'm working on. Other times it's just as simple as when I'm writing it, I think to myself, okay, well, I need a beat here. I need to cut to these characters. They need to be doing something. What are they talking about? What is something fun that they can say? What is something fun they can put out there in the issue that readers will say, okay, well, that's a good little laugh from a character that I didn't expect to care about at all. So it's just kind of a combination, really. It's not like I've got my character sketchboard saying, okay, I need to reference this thing so that this character gets their bit of time in the sun. It just kind of comes about organically, really. Or rather, it should seem like it comes about organically. It does, but you also have to get it out there in a way that is organic.
Yeah, you don't have like your handy little notebook in your pocket. Like, this is where I have to put the Elvis references.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it was number 4. I was like, I haven't had an Elvis reference for a while. So I made sure to put Bruno in like a TCB hat and like Elvis sunglasses in one panel.
Yeah, the character stuck on me. I was like, I really like this guy.
Yeah, it's funny to me too how Dr. Corpse, he's got a very distinct redesign. Like Travel redesigned him, for Black Cat #1 back in 2019. And he's, looked more or less the same the whole time. But Bruno, he kind of runs the gamut. Like, different artists are really interested in interpreting him the way they like. Like CF draws like a really handsome Bruno, and Chris Anka draws kind of like he's almost like an anime character. The big round guy with the big smile. And it's funny to see these characters interpreted by other people, or by different people. Excuse me.
Yeah, that is interesting to see like the one character go through these different looks. I did want to ask. It was recently announced that you're going to be taking over Moon Knight.
Mm-hmm.
How do you approach writing a character who's struggling with mental illness?
It's something that you need to be aware of, and something that, I mean, the short answer is it's very easy in comic books to portray mental illness as a superpower. And I don't know if that's always the best way to go about it. So in Moon Knight, we're looking at a Mark Spector who's trying to be better. He's working with a therapist. He's in recovery for his DID, because we want to make sure that not every Moon Knight story is a story about here's Mark Spector, here's his dissociative identity disorder, and here's how it's completely ruining his life. Full stop. He's not a character who is solely defined by his DID. And that's kind of what we're looking at here. It's something that affects his life, and it's something that is a big part of him, but it's also not the only thing in his life that is giving him challenges or causing him difficulties. And we're branching out of that because that's a Moon Knight story that we've seen a lot. And we kind of want to look at it from in a different angle, in a different direction. So we're trying to portray it, in a sensitive manner, in a manner that's respectful to people struggling with mental illness, but also not as the solely defining trait of the character.
With all that being said, is this book going to have more of a, not somber, but a heavier tone than your normal humor? Or are you going to balance that?
Yeah, like it's not going to be Black Cat, it's certainly not going to be Taskmaster. It's much more grounded in its tone, because again, we're looking at a guy who's kind of at the beginning of an upswing of a redemptive arc. Like he's, the age of Khonshu, Mark really kind of messed up. He may have gone into it with the best intentions, but it didn't go well. And here we're seeing him try to pick up the pieces of his life and start again. And we're going to be dealing with these sort of fallouts as he's evaluating who he is. He's evaluating what he is doing with his life, especially in the absence of, Khonshu, who has always been a guiding force in his life for good or for ill, where now he's striking out his own because Khonshu's off in jail in Asgard. So we're going to see who he is without Khonshu. And he's trying to discover, why is he Moon Knight? What does Moon Knight mean to him? And taking it in a new direction.
I'm very excited to see what you do with him.
Yeah, it's a book I'm really excited to be writing. Some stuff I write gives me a lot of trouble. It takes a long time to get a script out, but other books like Taskmaster, I do a script in a day sometimes because I'm just like so keyed into it. And Moon Knight's the same way, where when I'm not writing Moon Knight, I'm thinking about writing Moon Knight,
That's all. I'm so excited to see a character get to come back from something that has defined him for so many of his stories, to be given a chance to show what his actual identity is.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, it came with when I was talking to the editors about doing the book, it came with some specific briefs from editorial saying, a lot of Moon Knight stuff in the past has been either, Mark's mental illness or Khonshu, and we want to kind of see what else there is. So that's what we're working with now.
I'm pumped. So before I hand over the questions to Ethan, I did want to ask something I've been thinking about with Taskmaster.
Sure.
He's a character whose entire power set is pretty much just copying other people's abilities. I know he has his cowardice, which is kind of his secret weapon, but
it's not that secret.
Yeah. At one point he talks about how he doesn't know the names of all these moves and things that he's doing, and they're so cool, but he doesn't know the names of them.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think as a character he is okay with his own sense of identity? Or does he do this whole mercenary killer for hire thing because it's really all he knows how to do well?
That's a question you need different answers from different people that work with the character.
Mm-hmm.
In my take on it, I think he likes what he does. As you saw when he went to Wakanda, he was taking apart the Hatuzaras, or however they are pronounced, and he's like, "Yeah, this is great. This is what I'm meant to do." They said, "What was his line?" He's like, "You might think that taking apart normal guys like this would make me a bully." And he says, "You'd be right. The saying, do what you love, and you'll never work a day in your life."
I think that's a much more interesting read of the character than like if it was him like he's struggling with who he is, because like at the end of the day, some characters are just assholes, and letting them.
I think there's room for a certain amount of pathos in Taskmaster, and I certainly have stories I would like to do with him to explore that. But at the same time, he's not someone who's been driven into the life because he's trying to raise money for his kid sister's operation. He's not someone who's misunderstood. Taskmaster, he's basically exactly what he appears to be. Like, he's an asshole with a skull face and a cape running around getting up to adventures. And again, that's going to be an interpretation that will differ between the various people who work with him. But that's what I like about him.
Well, Ethan, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Dan. Following off from what Dan asked, a through line of the Taskmaster mini is people constantly underestimating him and demeaning him as an idiot. Do you think that's something that bothers him or something that fuels him to keep going?
Yeah, I think it bothers him. Like, on one hand, again, for an international mercenary and, doing some light terrorism, he's kind of an easygoing guy. But at the same time, I think he's getting tired of people saying like, "Oh, it's Taskmaster. He's just a fucking jobber." At the end, that's his whole statement. It's like, it's time I reminded people who they're dealing with, and time and time again, everyone's like, "Oh, Taskmaster, that clown." He's like, "Yeah, well, that clown just got one over on you." Like, "Oh, that clown just smoked out Hyperion." I'm like, "Oh, that clown just about destroyed the planet."
Yeah, he goes through some stuff in our series.
Yeah. He's it's in issue 2 where he fights Hyperion. I got the art back and got the colors back. I was looking at my email. I was like, "This looks great. Like, it's really awesome." But it looks really clean. It's like I don't get the feel, the visceral feeling that like Taskmaster's getting the absolute piss hammered out of him. And they're like, "Okay, well, we'll take another pass on the colors," and that was the end of it. Then a little while later, I was down at the comic shop and I picked up an issue, and I had to kind of blew my hair back because it was just covered in blood. And I hadn't seen it until I hadn't seen that revision until it was on the page. It's like, holy shit, this issue went from fun to absolutely splatterhouse grotesque. And it was awesome.
It was awesome. Another point with Taskmaster is in issue 4, you bring up his policy of no wives, no girlfriends, no mothers. Mm-hmm. Was that a deliberate reaction to certain famously maligned moments throughout comic history?
Again, I think that's part of what we talk about of making a character relatable. The no Nazi thing is just like, after the last couple of years we've had, let's draw some lines of fucking Nazis, shall we, with characters we're supposed to like. As far as that, it's hard to say because that's a line that really speaks to the themes of the comic, in that Taskmaster's understanding why Maria Hill, again, spoilers here for anyone that hasn't read Taskmaster, maybe, pause it or something, why Maria Hill faked her death. Because Maria Hill is canny and she understands how this world works. And I guess you could say it's like taking a shot at it, but I'm not, calling out creators or anything like that. But I just think it's interesting that Taskmaster is enough of a professional to recognize how these things go. And he's like, you know what? I'm not interested in that. He's like, I think it's gross, but also I don't want to get my ass absolutely whipped like every time that Bullseye does it and every time he gets his ass whipped for it,
Yeah, no, that totally. And then what made you decide to use Working 9 to 5 by Dolly for his ringtone?
Well, that's one of the small pleasures of writing comic books is figuring out what people's ringtones are. Back in Daughters of the Dragon, I was trying to figure out what Colleen Wing's ringtone would be, and I used Crime Samurai. So it's perfect. It's a great song, and it perfectly suits Colleen Wing, at least in my mind. And so after that, I'm like, oh, jeepers, I'm going to figure out what people's ringtones are going to be. And I don't remember exactly what the process was, but the idea of Taskmaster's business ringtone being Dolly Parton's 9 to 5, I was like, it just fucking works, It's all it is. It's all it needs to be.
Yeah. When I turned the page and saw that, I barely laughed. It was amazing.
Because he's a working man, he's not looking to take over the world.
Yeah, exactly. Does Moon Knight have a ringtone?
He does.
Yeah, we'll find out, will we?
You'll find out in issue 1, 2, 3, 4.
Brilliant.
Write it down.
So jumping over to Black Cat, after years of subtext and hints, you got to be the person that officially confirmed Felicia's a member of the LGBTQIA plus community. Yep. What did that mean to you? And what was the fan reaction to it like for you?
Mostly good. It was one of those things that it had been, it'd been hinted at back in The Evil That Men Do, that Kevin Smith Johnson's run. And with comics fans, if you throw something out like that, people are going to latch onto it, and it's going to become important to people. And I felt it was something that we needed to, address. We needed to bring it up. We needed to make it part of the story because, it's there. You can either ignore it and brush it under the rug and it just looks kind of shitty, or you can address it. You can make it part of the story. You can give people for whom this would be important something. And that's just kind of the long and the short of it. Otherwise, it would just be kind of cowardly to ignore it.
No, totally. I personally loved it when it was blatantly on the page.
Yeah, I'm always concerned about sounding like I'm really blowing my own horn and crowing about my huge allyship or some shit like that. But it seemed like something that was good to do. Is kind of the long and the short of it. It's something that had been important to people, and I think they deserve that confirmation.
Yeah, no, it was great. And Black Cat getting mixed up with the Infinity Stones, and it's a reasonably logical evolution from the Thieves Guild. Is it all tumbling down on Felicia soon?
When hasn't it really? This is Felicia messing around with cosmic powers well beyond her ken, that she would ordinarily have no truck with. But as of issue 8, I can't keep track of all this shit. 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, as of issue 8, she's in a position where she doesn't have many options. So we're going to see how she gets involved in this infinity nonsense, and we're going to see how it shakes out for her. And the thing about the Infinity Stones is they are items of cosmic import. And they are made even more complicated these days by being incarnated into individuals, as we saw with, Star and Overtime. And that causes difficulties. But also when you're dealing with items of cosmic import, you're going to have a lot of competition for them. So we're going to see Felicia up against a few other people who also want to collect this cosmic power for their own ends.
I can't wait to see the chaos that ensues. Last question then. If you had a Goldberg machine, what would it do?
Sorry, if I had a what?
A Rube Goldberg machine.
Oh, I don't know what that is. If I had a Rube Goldberg machine, what would it do? It would probably... What do I hate getting up to do? It would probably wash out the travel mug that my wife uses for tea. Because every morning I wash out the mug and I make tea for her. And if I had a machine, I could just press a button when I'm in bed, and then a bunch of shit rattles around my house. And then that travel mug comes out clean. Be great. It would start my day off perfect. It'd save me so much time. Well, I mean, it would save me 3 to 4 minutes a day, but that counts.
Yeah, well, that's perfectly logical.
That would have been an incredible bit if you just, even though we asked you before the show if you knew what a Rube Goldberg machine was, you're like, no, I have no idea, and just refused to answer it.
And also refused to learn.
Yeah. No, I don't believe that's real. Making that up. We had Leah Williams on, who had seen the questions beforehand, and we asked her the sandwich question, and she goes, "Oh, I thought this was a joke. I thought you were messing with me." And I was like, "Well, all right."
You're like, "Wow, there's my petard. I'm being hoisted by it at the moment we speak."
Game over. Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming out.
No, I'm not. I'm leaving the internet forever. Podcast over.
Throwing the towel. Bye. Well, thank you so much for joining us. When can people find your next issues?
Let's see. Black Cat is May 12th, I believe. Mech Strike. I believe there's a Mech Strike out next month. It's been staggered a little. Avengers Mech Strike. I believe number 4 is out next month, and then number 5, I believe, is in July. So just with production ramping up after COVID, stuff gets shuffled around to fit into printing schedules. So we're a little staggered in the kind of the back half of Avengers Next Strike. Moon Knight starts in July. Very excited about that, as you might have known. And we've got Magic coming out, I think May 4th. I don't know. I'm very bad at keeping the dates of these things straight. People will tag me in reviews. I'm like, oh shit, I had that book out. I should have tweeted about it. Especially as the more books I have, the worse it gets. But yeah, trade paperback of Taskmaster Rubicon Trigger is out, I believe, in June. So if you missed the series, maybe pick up the trade paperback. The art is really great. So it's certainly worth looking at. Other than that, yeah, check out Black Cat, check out Magic the Gathering, check out Avengers Next Strike, check out Moon Knight when it starts up. Very pumped for it.
Thank you for coming. You can find us at gatecrashers.fan and on Twitter at gatecrasherspod.
Gatecrashers.